Hey Science 20s, it's the Tree of Life discussion over today, tomorrow, and Friday. We're going to be talking about the Tree of Life and evolution. You have your populations assignment to do this week. Thursday and Friday, not today, today's Wednesday, but Thursday and Friday, I'm going to have another little short Google form quiz for you guys to do. So I know you're working on that populations assignment, but I'd also like you to try that. I think it's about 7 questions long, this little Google Forms quiz.
Call the office.
Caretakers. Okay, anyways, the Tree of Life shows that the 3 areas of life have a common ancestor. We talked about this yesterday, and science doesn't really know what that is. But where we are, the animals, top right, you can't see because I'm pointing and it's just a video. Our branch goes down to archaea and then the bacteria. So on our Tree of Life, back far enough, we get to fungus. And all animals in life are related because if you look at our DNA and the markers in our DNA, we have the exact same genes in our DNA to do certain things that bacteria do. The coding is exactly the same. Our DNA is really, really, really close to chimpanzees, but it's also pretty close to a mushroom. I know that's hard to believe, but we are closer to a mushroom, some people think, than plants, like a tree. We have more in common with the plant than something you'd put on a pizza than a spruce tree. Okay, so let's talk about evidence from evolution. That's what today's lesson is on. There's no assignment aside from the big one due at the end of this week, that graphing assignment with populations. And I've got a bunch of little videos that you guys can watch as well. You see there's a clip there, but I've got that linked in the main lesson. Okay. So the fossil record is a huge area of evolution, or a huge area of evidence. You'll see in tomorrow's lesson, I'm going to be narrating through this really cool video that shows the earliest, the earliest human ancestor in Africa, and how our fossil records have shown that that early human ancestor, early primate, has all of these other basically like ancestors, and we have their bones. So it's not like we've made this up or we're imagining. We have physical evidence that you can hold in your hand called fossils that show how animals change over time. It's like a big puzzle. The other thing, patterns of distribution, that's another really important part of the evidence for evolution, of how there are different structures in different animals around the world too. Okay, comparative anatomy. So all mammals have very similar anatomy. Now we're going to talk about how structures can get to the same function, but they are very different, like the wings on a bat versus the wings on a bird. Both animals fly, but a bat has a human hand inside its wing. It's true. A whale has a human hand inside its flippers. Absolutely true. So our structures in kingdom Mammalia, in the mammalian kingdom, our hands and feet and things like that, those same structures are found also in nature, the same kind of bone structures. Obviously, the bones are different because they're longer, skinnier, they can do different things, but there's very similar anatomy that can show. Now, even within early humanoid species, they can actually determine the time when our ancestors lost the ability to live in trees, because we lost the ability to curve our toes. I don't know if you've seen a monkey's or a gorilla's foot, but their feet are like our hands. And our early ancestors eventually lost that, and then they couldn't live in the trees anymore. Embryology. Okay, so this is a cool one. If you watch the video, I think it goes into more detail. But when you go back in time from a little human baby to when it's a growing baby, you can really not tell the difference between a little human baby and a little dog baby or a bat baby, because the embryos look very, very similar. How they they grow when they're very small are all so very close together. And then as they get bigger, of course, they differentiate. So that's another piece of evidence. And lastly, the big kicker is genetics. When they sequenced the DNA 20 years ago for humans, they found shocking similarities with chimpanzees. Like above 90, I think 98% or something like that. A huge correlation with DNA that's very similar. And they found that the gene in our bodies to per se consume sugar is the same as the gene in plants and the same as the gene in mushrooms. So we have similar genetic structures and similar genetic biochemistry. All right, so this is the last slide for today because this lesson is really short because I do want you to watch those videos that I've got linked in there because they're more interesting than me talking. But this information you might need for the Google quiz tomorrow and Friday. So there are two types of structures. There's anomalous structures. Those serve similar purposes, but they've evolved separately. So sharks can swim, penguins can swim, and dolphins can swim. However, what their structures, when you take away the skin, you have a very, very different structure. So a penguin's swimming ability is more like a wing. A shark's fin is similar to all fish, right? It's not like a hand and it's not like a wing. And a dolphin, you can see the 5 fingers on it, just like a human, right? I love that. It's my favorite part of like whales and dolphins is how similar their flippers are to our hands, and their back kind of like dolphin-y thing is like if we fused our 2 legs together. I love it. All right, so that's an anomalous structure. They are structures that do this similar things, but they evolved separately and got to the same point. Okay. They're not very related to each other. So like a dolphin is not super related to a penguin, even though they both swim. A penguin and a shark are not very well related, even though they both swim. So there's not a lot of evolutionary relationships there. Okay. Now, the other type of structure is called a homologous structure. So those are structures which serve different purposes, right? So they do different things, but they are, when you take away the skin and the tendons and stuff, they are anatomically similar. They're very similar in how their anatomy is. So they have evolutionary relationships. A human's hand and a whale's hand and a bat's wing and a cat's foot, they have very similar structures, even though they do different things. Like, there's no way humans can jump like a cat, or fly like a bat, or swim like a whale, but our hands and our arms are very similar. We have elbows. We have the 2 different bones for the forearm. If you look at the bat, it's got a little forearm bone, just like the cat and the human does. Okay. All right, so I've got a couple videos that you guys, so these videos here, you guys can watch. I'll just go through this really quickly because it's in the video. Most life is thought to have started in the ocean, and that's just because the ocean had more, I guess, life-giving properties. Then there wasn't a lot of oxygen, so the animals could live in the ocean first. And our evidence seems to show that the fossil record seems to show the earliest things that were alive lived in the ocean, and over time, things from the ocean went onto land. Okay, I'm going to stop it there. There are a couple other videos I'd like you to watch. You don't have to, but it helps. And then tomorrow, you've got the Google quiz to do along with another video to watch by me.